Hey, it's Vanessa, and welcome back to Born to Build the New. In today's episode, we are talking about the paradigm shift itself. It is a phrase that I use frequently, and I was reminded in the last week multiple times, even by my husband, actually. He asked me, what do you mean by the paradigm shift? And he's around me all the time. So I thought, let me take this opportunity to share with you how I define the paradigm shift, what is actually shifting, and what your role in it is. This is what I hint to every single time I do a podcast episode, whether I'm a guest on somebody else's podcast or simply speaking for this podcast. I'm always referencing the paradigm shift. So this is what we'll get into today. But before we do, as always, love to introduce myself. I'm Vanessa Smith, host of Born to Build the New, energy guide and identity seer. And like I say in every episode, I love to talk about the paradigm shift that we're in and specifically how you are meant to use your gifts to build the new and what comes up along the way. So I'm really talking to the visionary entrepreneurs, those doing their purpose work, those that are really leading and leaning into this larger calling. And you can be anywhere on that journey. It's so funny because most of my people, at least the people that I serve as clientele, they don't see themselves necessarily as leaders, yet they feel this deep call within their system to contribute to collective change. They see themselves as paradigm shifters. They feel and know that they're here to build the new, and they're using their business as the vehicle to do so. The purpose work that they do and the gifts that they have are part of what shifts the paradigm. So let me pull it back instead of going into what comes up along the way, which is usually what I focus on in this podcast, that kind of messy in-between space of the identity shifts that we go through and what it looks like to build a business that is meaningful to you, that and also want it to have a larger collective impact. Today, we're going to pull it back a bit and focus in on paradigm shift because it's essential to establish that foundation of what I mean by that, because I am talking to you, the paradigm shifter. You want to have some clear idea of like, oh, I get it. I feel this call, but now I get even more what the framework is that I'm operating within. So let's start with the basics here. A paradigm, the word itself, it's simply a model that we exist within. And that model is built on assumptions and beliefs and ways in which we are expected to operate, whether that's in work or relationship or health. It spans across every single domain, right? We have our own personal paradigm, our own personal matrix that we often have blind spots around. We don't realize the ways in which we are limiting ourselves. And sometimes even if we do have a heads up around that, it takes some courage and grit, confidence, clarity to choose to set up a business or a life that is counter to the collective expectation, the collective paradigm, right? So we have an interesting call right now around how we build our own lives and how we are also building our new paradigm businesses. So a paradigm is just that. It's simply a model that we exist within. And the way that I view that model changing is in three distinct ways. And I'll explain what those ways are. And I will then follow up and share with you why I perceive it in these three ways that are showing up for me specifically. So the first way that we see is very tangible, very in our faces, and that has to do with the systems and structures. These systems and structures can refer to politics, economy, environment, education, healthcare, community. They're basically every aspect of our life. There is a system and a structure that it exists within. We are currently right now seeing the breakdown of all of these old paradigm structures, systems and structures. We're watching it implode. We're seeing that the mainstream narrative has a lot of holes in it. And we're thinking, okay, what do we do with this information? And in the past, decades ago, and still to this day, what many people would tend to do is be an activist, right? Be on the front line and do protests. And that is one very valid way to work with the paradigm shifting. My people, however, don't tend to fit under that category. They want to build something new. They are inherently visionaries at heart. And really visionary entrepreneurs, because they're using their business as the vehicle to create this collective change. And so when the old is breaking down, it's an interesting paradox and juxtaposition, because we simultaneously need to be building the new. Like, where's the catchment system for everybody that's falling out from the mainstream healthcare or medical system? Right? What about we see in terms of education, there's a lot of homeschooling, world schooling, unschooling, charter schools. There's a lot of alternatives that are popping up. These are all examples of new paradigm systems and structures that are being built in response to what is falling apart, what is not working, or what is simply not resonant for your way of life. So that is one way in which the systems and structures, or one way in which the paradigm is shifting within this construct of the systems and structures that we live within. And those were a couple of different examples. That's in our face very much, especially depending on where you get your news sources from. The second way that the paradigm is shifting is within consciousness itself. So we, as beings with consciousness, are starting to perceive ourselves and our reality in a much more expanded way. We're starting to see our place in the world, our connection, not just connection with nature, but us being also representative of nature itself, rather than just being a part of it. We're just a different expression of it. And so our sense of soul, our sense of spirit and spirituality, our sense of connection with different realms of reality, whether that is you feeling more connected with God or you feeling more of a sense of your multidimensionality, the consciousness itself is changing. And let me give you a very tangible example of what this has looked like. So I've been around for a while. I don't think of myself as that old, but I feel quite young at heart. But I remember in the 80s, even though I was a kid, I've always been a bit of an observer. Actually, that's an understatement. I am a very in-depth observer. I would always be in observing mode, especially as a young one, because I didn't learn how to have proper boundaries. And so that was one of the ways that I felt I could be aware of what was going on and kind of keep myself safe at the same time. And so I remember in the 80s that mental health began being talked about more. And probably like mid to late 80s, that became more of a thing to talk about mental health. Whereas before that period of time, there was just a focus on physical health. And you can see it in the lexicon, right? Linguistically, the statements that we make shows you where the consciousness is at. So you would hear statements like, oh, it's all in your mind. meaning it's not real unless it's physical. And so there was a paradigm shift just in understanding what health and well-being is, because it moved out of the physical body. No, I mean, it included the physical body. It expanded, the consciousness expanded, and then said, oh, your mind matters too. Your mindset matters. The way that you think and talk about your reality impacts your health. That was a consciousness shift. After that, we saw the rise of emotional well-being and how that impacted health. We saw Brene Brown talking about vulnerability and workplace wellness programs popping up around mental and emotional health and how that can, quote, improve employee performance, right? So there's some very tangible ways that we've seen the consciousness shift. Now, when I was first getting into the field of intuition from a more professional level, I've been intuitive all my life, but to see the rise of it and start to merge into that field myself around intuition back in, I'd say, like early 2000s, developing your intuition, assuming that you have intuition. These were all new concepts back in from 2000 to 2010, right? Everyone was talking about, oh, can I be an intuitive too? Like, how do I do that? And now here we are, 2026, as this is being recorded. Everybody knows that they're intuitive. You know what I mean? Like, and even if it's not part of your, say, regular reality or regular language that you talk about, there's still this accepted sense of, I'm trusting my gut, I'm listening to my gut. Like, even if there's more mainstream language used around it, the sentiment is still the same, which is, there's something within me that's guiding me towards what's the right choice for me in this moment, right? That's a very short summary of intuition. Obviously, you can get way more in depth with it, but that has also now become an accepted part of the mainstream collective consciousness. And yes, I'm sure you know people that still aren't there in terms of their own consciousness. And there may be cultures that are also not there yet in terms of their consciousness, but the needle has moved and it has become more accepted. So the consciousness, again, has changed. And when you see these patterns that happen over time, where we are expanding our sense of what is reality and who we are as human beings within that, that is a consciousness expansion. And so that is another way that the paradigm shift is happening. It's the expansion in consciousness. That's number 2. The first one was the change in the systems and the structures. Second, consciousness expansion. The third piece is one that I will say it will land for those of you that are tuning in. The type of people that I'm speaking to will be nodding their heads and going, yes, I get this. And then, of course, this is still to a degree a fringe topic, but it's going to lead into, why I see it as such in just a moment. The third way that the paradigm is shifting has to do with energy. The energy systems and structures themselves are changing, and that affects our daily reality. It affects how we move through the world. It's not just a consciousness expansion. That's where we're aware of what we're thinking and speaking out into the world. The energy shift is something that is a lot more subtle for some people. It's not very subtle for me, but that's because I'm in the field of energy. But we can look at it, again, in a very tangible way. If you just look at the field of energy in general, that has expanded exponentially, even in the last five years. Really, we're at the beginning of a new era when it comes to viewing ourselves as not just human beings, but energy beings. We see the field of quantum mechanics, energy psychology, people studying, like the Heart Math Institute over in California is studying the energies of the heart and seeing how it extends much further than the energy of the rest of the body. There's Lynn McTaggart, who has studied the power of focused prayer. There's Joe Dispenza, who's done incredible scientific, rigorous studies around meditation and moving energy in that way. There's obviously many different types of energy medicine itself. There's homeopathy and flower essences and cell salts. I mean, it just is a field that is continuing to expand and expand and expand, which I find very exciting because I felt really on the fringe for most of my life. And those of us that are born to build the new, we often do. We often feel like, where exactly do we fit here? This whole construct we exist within, this context, something is off here. Like, something's not right. And so for me, I don't necessarily need the validation at this point, but it is very validating to see the rise and expansion of energy being more a part of our general framework of how we understand ourselves and how we can work with our energy systems. I mean, even when you look at Chinese medicine, which has been around for thousands of years, or like the Ayurvedic system, again, around for a very long time, energy has been talked about in many different ways. And so right now, the paradigm is shifting because it's becoming more mainstream. It's becoming more nuanced and part of the conversation itself. And the way that I am able to see these three different patterns, these three ways that the paradigm is shifting through the systems and the structures, through the consciousness expanding, and through the energy systems themselves. And I actually can't walk away without saying this. It's not just the fact that the field is expanding with more specific and nuanced information around the ones that I just mentioned, quantum mechanics, energy psychology, energy medicine, quantum biology, all of these pieces, right? Circadian rhythm, I could go on. It's that our systems and structures of our energetic systems and structures are shifting right now. And there's many different ways that you can begin to sense that happening. You may be more sensitive to sounds and smells and light. I have to discipline myself to rein it in because a lot of people are having these labels slapped on them, late diagnosis, autism, ADHD, all these things. And I'm like, you guys, it's not that. It's your energy systems are changing. However, I'm going to, like I said, try and pull it in here. But our systems and structures, we have energy systems and structures. Again, look to Chinese medicine, who talks about the meridian system, or Ayurveda talks about the chakra system. I'm using those two systems as examples just because they're the most well known. But there's other very specific ways that our energy systems are changing. And you might notice it subtly at first, like your other senses are becoming more sensitive, or you're starting to feel a lot of sensation in your hand, or you're starting to feel more clear within your own emotional well-being and your heart space area, right? There's different ways. I teach all of this in my energy courses. There's one called Energy Essentials, which goes into all the detail about the node system and the high heart and all of these different pieces of our energy system. So this is also part of the paradigm shift, because as these changes are taking place, we are then perceiving and moving through our reality in a very different kind of way. which leads to how I'm able to perceive these three things. I call myself an energy guide because that's how I like to title myself, and because it's literally what I'm doing. I'm guiding other people to start to unpack and learn how to unpack the underlying energy at play. What are the dynamics that are going on underneath the surface of whatever? Your money, your health, your relationships, your work, the larger collective, whatever it is. You can learn how to look at it through an energetic lens. And this is something that I've been able to do my entire life. I didn't have necessarily like schooling around this. I had mentors and those were super, super helpful for me, but it's just something that I've organically been able to do, is to look through the lens of energy and see what's actually going on. So it's in some ways an empath trait to have a sense of, oh, something's not quite right or someone's not telling the truth. Except for me, it's very visually clear, auditory. I can sense, see, hear, feel, know energy in many, many different ways. It is as real to me as physical reality. And in some ways, it is more real to me than physical reality. And being able to translate this and see, okay, looking at what's going on, what is shifting from that paradigm perspective, what's going on energetically, what's going on underneath the surface, to be able to translate that and then find very specific, tangible examples of that you can relate to out in the world is a way to help you be engaged with the larger conversation of what's taking place right now. So to sum up these pieces, we've got the paradigms model. It's shifting right now. These are the three ways that it's shifting: in systems and structures, in consciousness, in energy itself. There is another framework, the human design framework, which is worth giving a nod to at this moment. And then I want to move into your role in the paradigm shift, because it's a really unique time and you do have a really unique role in it. But the human design system, just briefly, because it's an important nod, if you're familiar with it, it's based on your birthday in a similar way that astrology is, but it has a very specific way of understanding the energy mechanics of an individual, how they're designed, as well as the collective energy mechanics and how it's designed. Now, according to human design, they have what's called a body graph, and there is a collective body graph where it shifts every 400 years. And so the last 400 years, the model that we've been living in collectively, the paradigm, has been known, the body graph is called the establishment. And it's a generator focused, that's a type of in human design. It's a hierarchical, follow the rules, this is what's expected to you, very defined path, and that we just follow the authority outside of ourselves. And that collective body graph is shifting in 2027, according to the, I think he goes by R.A. I don't know the full name. Sorry. But I know that the human design, I thought it was interesting because I can see energetically what's shifting. And when I heard that human design also has a similar model or a different kind of framework to basically point to the same thing, I thought that was fascinating. And so the body graph, collective body graph, is shifting in 2027. Specifically, I don't know how they calculate the date, but February 15th, 2027. That doesn't mean that on that day everything is completely different, but it moves into a different collective energy. And so we'll be living that out through our choices And what it's changing to is the rise of the sleeping phoenix is what it's called. But it's an individuated type of body graph where everyone is choosing to extract themselves from the system. Obviously not, I said everyone, obviously not everyone. Some of us, it's on a continuum. Some of us are going first and other people are saying, nope, I'm staying exactly in the system. And then there's everything in between. But what will happen when the collective body graph shifts is that you might notice, and you might notice it now too, a rise within your system to say, I need to do something different in my life. I need to go a different career path or move to a different location, or it's just an impulse will rise within you to redirect your life in a way that is more aligned to who you are now, to what feels right. Regardless of if you've kept yourself limited or held back or whatever story you've told yourself. Maybe it felt right before to you to follow the system and now it doesn't anymore. So we're going to see more and more individuals individuating from the path, more following their own sense of agency, authority, sovereignty, like just creating the life that is aligned for them. And so that is another way to look at the paradigm shift that is happening right now, which leads to where do you fit? Like, what does that mean for you? And obviously, again, this is a podcast for those of you that are born to build the new. There's something in you that's saying, I want to craft something different. I would love for it to have collective impact. I want to build my business in a more purpose-driven way. It can look like different things, but basically you know that you're born to build the new and you're somewhere in the process of doing that. Whether it's just initially writing down the seed of an idea or you're actively in the build of it. What it means for you though, with the paradigm shift is that we're in an in-between time where the old is breaking down and the new is being built, but the old is not obsolete yet. We still exist within an old paradigm construct, framework, like we're still operating within it, but we see that it's breaking down. And there are some people that have built the new, but for many people, we're in the process of building the thing. It hasn't necessarily been made manifest. It hasn't taken form yet, or maybe it's in the process of being built, right? So we're in between these two states, the old paradigm and the new paradigm, while we're simultaneously extracting ourselves from the old system so the old system no longer extracts our energy from us. We decide to divest and divert our energy somewhere else, our life force. And at the same time, we're building the new, right? So we're in this in-between state. We're in an in-between state with our identity and sense of self. Like, oh my gosh, can I really just step away from this old way of doing things and build a completely different alternative? Yes, you can. So we're in a state of changing how we view ourselves, how we view our power, and how we actually do the build. It is a bridge building time. And the irony is that we have to build it as we go, as we're building as we're crossing. That's not an easy ask. So we're not only trying to use our gifts, figure out how to build a business, and then keep this vision as our anchor, this vision in mind for us of whatever it is that we're building, but we're doing it while there's not really solid ground to stand on. We're building the bridge as we cross the bridge. And I've always seen this time energetically between 2020 and 2030 as the bridge time. where more of the bridge builders will be called forward, where your life will transform, whether you asked for it to transform or not. 2020 was a very definitive paradigm shift for everybody, no matter what your view is of the story of what went down in 2020. We all have a different perspective on what that means. Maybe you abide by the mainstream narrative around that. I'm guessing if you're here, you probably don't, but maybe you do, and that's okay too. Or maybe you're on the complete other end of the spectrum and you see the events of 2020 in a very different light. But that was a definitive change, and it was a big door opener for us to question how we live and what is life really about. So during this time of this 10-year span that we're over halfway through now, it's calling us forward in new ways. Those of us that are building the new, those of us that are bridge builders. We are tasked with not only, detaching from the old, which is actually probably the easiest part because we never quite fit in with that old paradigm, but we're building the new, and we're needing to translate what we're doing in a way that makes sense to other people. Because, it's a time where a lot of triggers are coming up, a lot of maybe fears and insecurities. It's causing us to look at our beliefs in a new way, the way we structure our lives in a new way. And it can be very tender territory. And so for those of us that are born to build the new, we're really being asked to bridge, not just for ourselves, but for other people, with the language that we use, with the business that we build, with the visions that we share, with the stories that we tell, with how we show up in our lives on a day-to-day basis. And it takes some thoughtfulness. It takes some groundedness and some sense of self strong enough that it lives outside of the paradigm shift. This timeless sense of self that can navigate this transformation without being taken under by it. And that's not everybody's role, but it is the role of those born to build the new. And so it requires us to really tend to ourselves and be kind to ourselves, so we have the fortitude and the strength to build the bridge, build the new, and help others cross. That's what I've got for you on the paradigm shift. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about my work and how I support the paradigm shifters, please go to vasmith.com and you'll find all that you need for your build resources there. Take care, and I'll talk with you again in the next episode.